We ended part 1 by showing that the cross-section views of all 3 of the Giza Plateau pyramids can be derived directly from Metatron's cube, simply by tracking the intersections of critical circles, squares, triangles, and diagonals. Part 2 is going to show that the overhead view of the entire plateau has been encoded into the original design so that the actual pyramid positions can also be located purely by tracking those same basic geometrical intersections. The next level of the magic begins. Drawing an exact perimeter around the 3 pyramids on the plateau. We're going to consult the first major survey done by Flinders Petrie from 1880 to 1882. He meticulously recorded the height and width of the Giza Plateau, from the northeast corner of Khufu to the southwest corner of Menkore, and determined its ratio to be essentially 1.222. The smallest possible integers which express this same ratio are 11/9. But for reasons that will become clear in part 3 of this series, when we see the entire plateau layout is defining musical intervals, we're going to choose a multiple pertinent to Pythagorean tuning, 528/432. We're drawing red lines to mark the west bases of Menkore, Khafre, and Khufu, blue lines to mark their east bases, green to mark the north bases, and orange to mark the south bases. Overlaying these overhead views of the entire plateau onto the cross-section views revealed in part 1, we see that several of these overhead colored lines correspond precisely with certain lines we just drew through the cross-section intersections. All the west base lines, this east base line, these north and south base lines, and very specifically here, where we see a key clue that the north base line of Menkore overhead view is the vesica line marking the center of Menkore in the cross-section view. It's an obvious giveaway, telling us we're on the right track, that these 2 viewpoints are intimately tied together. Let us count the ways. The double Menkore circle intersects the Khufu half-base square, which coincides with Khafre's west base. We don't yet know any other Khafre markers, but they're coming. As we just showed, the north base of Menkore overhead is the vesica line marking its center cross-section. Since the Menkore base is a square, we need only draw a 45-degree diagonal line from its southwest corner to locate its opposite corner, thus identifying the east base line. Obviously, now the south and west bases complete the overhead view of Menkore, G3. This other point, where the double Menkore circle intersects the Khufu half-base square, has produced a vertical line which precisely coincides with the west base of Khufu overhead view. Clearly, the north and east bases are bounded by the perimeter of the plateau, so it only requires us to draw a 45-degree diagonal line to identify its corner and complete Khufu G1 with its south base line. We now draw a half-base square of Khafre cross-section view and note where it intersects the double Menkore circle. The dotted line that implies connecting those 2 points coincides precisely with the south base of Khafre overhead view, so we now know both the south and west bases, thus identifying Khafre's lower left corner. There are just 2 more circles to go. One is diameter 528, the length of the plateau. The other is exactly half of that, 264, giving us the precise overhead view center of the plateau. All that remains is to draw a diagonal line at 45 degrees from the southwest corner of Khafre. Where it intersects the half plateau circle marks the precise center of the square base of Khafre, and thereby identifies its opposite corner. And there you have it. All three pyramids, G1, G2, G3, but this time their overhead views have now been derived purely from the intersections of squares, circles, triangles, and diagonals. It was intentionally designed from the start to be one genius masterwork, whose structure requires a far deeper recognition of ancient wisdom than has so far been suspected. Yet we've still seen only a glimpse of the magic this enigmatic wonder holds for us.